All right, I think we're live. Is it coming through okay for you guys? Happy Mandolin mornings. My name is David, if you're new here, and so excited just to get to hang with you fellow mandolin players, get to talk about mandolin, get to pick some tunes, keep the requests coming. I see we got some requests for some virtual tunes that we'll get to it eventually. And yeah, let me know how it's coming through today. I'm actually trying like a couple different camera settings. You know, I've been doing more virtual and media stuff for the past couple years, as a lot of folks have been, and just finally now starting to figure out how to work a camera. And I think I got the colors a little bit more realistic for these live streams today. I'm not shooting in like any weird picture profile. So let me know what you think, if it's sounding okay, if it's looking okay. And yeah, it's been a journey. Wow. I was just thinking today, like, I guess about 2 years ago, I had no idea like how to work a live stream, how to work a camera, how to film myself, anything like that. A shout out to any folks who have been going through like the whole learning curve on the technology side of things with me here. But it's been a lot of fun. I've been very, excited to kind of get more into the details, so to speak. It's like that with anything, I guess. You know what I mean? Like mandolin's very similar. Like when you first get started, you just aren't aware of all the possibilities, and it's only through like making mistakes, it's only through trying a lot of stuff out that you start to finally learn what you want to sound like, what you want to play, all sorts of things like that. So I'm excited to like continue to make mistakes and to continue learning mandolin as well as videography stuff. So how about that for a segue, talking more about mandolin here. How you guys doing? Let's see. We've got lots of folks on the stream today, right? Let's see. We've got about 65 folks here at the top. That's amazing. Oh, shout out to all you regulars here. What's up, Jim, Adam, Jeff, Dan, Patrick, James, Larry. I'm so glad all you folks could make it. Yeah, keep the chat coming here. Let me know where you guys are coming from, what's your plan, what mandolin you've got, what tunes you've been working on. If there's any questions that you guys have for me, not that I have any of the right answers, but stuff about mandolin technique, about approach to fiddle tunes, to bluegrass, to improvising. Eventually we'll get past bluegrass, but I've been really enjoying digging deeper into some fiddle tunes over the past couple of years here on the YouTube channel, and I've got a lot more coming. There are some great requests over on Patreon for some new lessons that we'll be getting to eventually. Been working on some backing tracks for some videos coming up soon. If anyone was interested, I did a poll over on my Patreon page, and I had about a dozen fiddle tunes listed, and kind of asked folks what their opinion was about what we should look at next. And I think the winners were Cattle in the Cane, which I'm really excited to look at that sometime in the next few weeks here, because of course you guys know there's this fantastic new record from the Punch Brothers that came out. It's called Hell on Church Street, and it's a remake of the classic Tony Rice record Church Street Blues. So really cool to hear their interpretations. If you haven't heard it already, definitely check it out. They're on tour as well, I think, at the minute. But there's a version of Cattle in the Cane on that record, which is just fantastic. So we'll be checking out that one. And let's see, other requests for, I think the other winners were Durang's Hornpipe, which is kind of a lesser known tune. It's a 3-part tune in the key of D, kind of from the old time traditions, but it's been adopted into some bluegrass circles. I know there's a great recording of Adam Steffi doing that one. So we'll be looking at that one soon. We'll also be checking out, what was the other ones? Cuckoo's Nest. Shout out to David for requesting that one. And we'll be, that was another high fiddle tune on the poll there that we'll be checking out soon. And what else there? There's a couple other ones. Maybe we'll keep the other ones a little bit of a surprise. But you can be looking out for those in the next month or two here. I've got to get the big double bass out of the closet. It's been hiding in the closet here, and record some bass on those tracks for you guys. Hope you guys have been enjoying those too. If you haven't already, you can check them out over on Patreon. You can download the MP3 backing tracks, just kind of empty backing tracks to play along with some of these tunes. Yeah, that's what's coming up here on the channel. But let's check in and see what's been happening this week. I don't know if you guys just saw it, but we've been talking about some root vegetables recently here on the channel. Check this out here. Oops, let's see. Let me get my window up here. I think this is right. Oh, let me try this again. Technical difficulties today. Nope, wrong window. Here we go. There we go. Nice. Of course, as I always say on these streams. We do these streams about every week here, every Saturday, and it's always at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern. Apologies to anyone who has kind of crazy time zone differences between the East Coast here and wherever you are. But thanks for tuning in, no matter what time of day it is. This is stream number 44, which is kind of crazy. I'm excited to be digging in a bit deeper with the live streams this year, and I'm actually, I got the camera settings figured out a little bit this week, but each week you'll probably be seeing some new stretch goals of some. I need to get some new graphics on here. We're looking at some different color schemes as well. Thinking green, brownish, orange, and maybe blue. I don't know. What do you guys think? We'll keep you posted on that. Anyways, these streams happen every week at 11 a.m. Thanks for tuning in. If it's your first time, we're so excited to have you here. And it's just a fun chance to kind of get to hang out. If you want to check out any of the other past 43 live streams, you can find it over here on Patreon. There's a link in the description box below. But let me see here. There's been some other stuff going on. I don't know if you guys saw this recent root vegetable video. What are potatoes, or what are taters? How to play fiddle tune kickoffs on the mandolin. That's been what we've been checking out this week over on the channel and over on Patreon. And it was a request from Will here, who was been asking about potatoes for a while, patron over on Patreon. And I'm so excited to finally get a chance to look at these, and actually got some real potatoes as some visual features for this video, which was kind of a silly thing, but it's pretty fun. But yeah, and if you've never heard of potatoes or taters before, we can review that here in our stream as well. I wanted to make sure that we spent some time dissecting that and answering any questions that you guys might have had from the video, because it's a pretty simple concept, but application can be a little bit difficult. Maybe we'll get a chance to try that out a bit today on our stream. But anyways, if you haven't heard of taters before, the idea is just to play kind of like this little rhythmic figure over the root note of whatever key you're in as a way of setting the tempo and kind of the key center for everyone else at the jam. So if I'm playing Big Iota, for instance, I might play a little potatoes or little taters like that, which was just this little excerpt here. And if you've never done this before, it's a fantastic way of starting off a tune, because it just makes everyone be on the same page about what the tempo and the key of the tune that you're starting. And everyone knows when to come in together too, which is really cool. That's the hard thing, I guess, about the jam. So you want, obviously it's like a safe space. You can try stuff out, you can make mistakes and all that stuff. Like we were talking about earlier, making mistakes is one of the best ways to learn. But at the same time, you want to be conscious of trying to add to the jam and make sure that you're making really good music together. And one of those little details is just kind of the choreography about how to start a tune, how to get everyone starting together so that there's no misstarts or no restarts, anything like that. And potatoes is just a real surefire way to kick things off. So if you want to check out the full lesson, it's about like 11 or 12 minutes over on the YouTube channel here. You can find it just by clicking on my name, I guess, on the screen below here, the video. Be sure to subscribe if you want to check out other videos like this in the future. But yeah, potatoes is kind of a fun term, and I don't know, some folks out there might know a little bit more about the history, but I think Pete Wernick has been credited for kind of coining that term or making it more popular. Pete Wernick's a great banjo player and jam educator, and has done a lot of stuff for that band Hot Rise and other things. But yeah, super fun idea, taters. So use that terminology next time you're at the jam there, and use some taters to kick off a fiddle tune. But let's see. There's been some other stuff going on here. I don't know if you guys know, there's a 30% off everything code over on Mel Bay, which is a great publication that has some fantastic mandolin method books, and I've definitely got a few on my shelf back here. I believe there's a few. Let's see what else was on the mandolin roster here on Mel Bay. Mandolin. I believe there's like getting into jazz mandolin, which has been kind of a fun book that I've been dipping my toes into a little bit. I'm not much of a jazz mandolin player, but I do want to get better at it. Just listening to folks like Jacob Jolliffe and Don Sternberg is pretty amazing. Then also another great book that a lot of people go to is The Complete Mandolinist by Marilyn Mayer. Amazing mandolin player up in the Northeast. That's a pretty comprehensive book over on Mel Bay. There's a few I'm not familiar with here. I should go check some of these out. Steve Kaufman, Bud Orr, Here's another Marilyn Mayer book about Shoro. So definitely worth checking out. 30% off is not a bad deal. It is fun kind of collecting mandolin books. I will say I'm kind of a culprit where I'll buy a bunch of books and not really dig deep into them. So I've got like a bunch of books I still need to go through sitting on my shelf over here. That Jazz for Mandolin book. There's a Jethro Burns book I've been kind of toying with a little bit as well. And what are some of your favorite books though? I've been toying with the idea of maybe doing like a book review or method book review series here on the channel, and just look at some of these popular mandolin books and kind of dissect what's going on and see what's going on with publications like you see here on screen. So let me know if there's any interest in that, or if there's any books that we should definitely check out here on the channel. And let's see, there's been some other stuff going on here. What about, have you guys heard of Ditanshu Roy? Amazing mandolin player from India. And it was really exciting to have him on the Mandolin Mondays series this past Monday. I don't know if you saw that video over on the cafe, but really cool playing, amazing stuff. It's like he was playing almost like a bluegrass interpretation of a Bengali folk tune. Yeah, Ditanshu is just kind of like a big figure over in the mandolin world. Has an incredible YouTube channel too. Really cool stuff you should definitely check out. And there's a new single from him I want to share with you, Firefly Waltz. Ditanshu, also, I don't know if you might know him by his moniker, which is Dolin Man, and really cool stuff on his social media and Facebook platforms as well. But yeah, Ditanshu's got a new single called Firefly Waltz, and it's kind of more of a singer-songwriter vibes. Really cool stuff. I've been enjoying listening to that, as well as just checking out his other stuff on YouTube. Be sure to give him a follow and give him a like. It's so fun seeing like different mandolin players from around the world, and people playing bluegrass as well as all sorts of other stuff too. I feel like chuffed to be a part of this community because it feels so special and so diverse and so different, and also like really closely knit too, which is again kind of one of the big features of the mandolin world. So check out Ditanshu. And then also there's some great tours going on right now. I mentioned the Punch Brothers earlier, right? I don't know if any of you guys have been seeing their shows recently. I'm so sad they will not be coming to the Carolinas near where we are. I really wanted them to come to Asheville. That's not too far from us, but they've just flown over to Asheville and all of the Carolinas. So what's with that, Punch Brothers? What's with that? No, but you guys should go see them if they're coming through your area. They're doing Toronto today. That's crazy. And then they're going to be coming through kind of like the East Coast here. Looks like Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia. I guess we could go see them in Georgia. Chattanooga, even Knoxville, Virginia, Pennsylvania, D.C., New York. All sorts of stuff. I mean, I've seen the Punch Brothers before, not on this tour, but I would love to see them play this interpretation of Church Street Blues live, just because I've heard so much about it, and those guys are just some of my favorite musicians. Incredible stuff. So check out their stuff. Also, I don't know if you guys know Corey Wong. He's the guitar player for Wolfpack, one of my kind of guilty pleasures. Not even guilty, because they're just fantastic musicians, and they play like all sorts of cool, I don't know what you call it, like kind of vintage pop, R&B, jazzy kind of stuff. And Corey's got a tour on his own here, and Sierra Hull is playing mandolin with him, which is so cool. I think she's going to be with him for the next 25 dates or so, I heard. So if you guys are going to be in any of these spots, definitely check out. They are going to come to Asheville. That's exciting. We might go see them in February if we can make that work, because that would be so fun. But anyways, definitely check out these amazing musicians. Go support them. You know, I'm excited like live music is happening again, but you know, it's also just kind of a strange time for music. So be careful, but also just like go support the arts and check out what's going on here. But anyways, let's catch up with what's going on with you guys. What's up? Baron Collins Hill is in the house. You guys know mandolin lessons. You guys know Mando lessons and love Mando lessons, and Baron is just a fantastic teacher. Thanks so much for joining us for the stream here. That's so cool. I'm glad that you'd be interested in doing a book method review. That'd be fun to team up for something like that too, if you're interested. Let's see what else. I've been slacking here. Got some potatoes chat, parsnips chat. We should like coin a new root vegetable term in bluegrass, parsnips or carrots or something like that. That would be a good idea. got a favorite tune with potato in the title? That's a good question. Well, there's Tater Patch. That might be one of my favorites. I haven't played that in a long time though. I don't know if I could pull that one out. That's a really good one. What else? There's there's I'm drawing a blank. What are some other good tunes with taters in the title? Let me know if you think of any here in the chat here. Shane's also saying, I am deep into Jack Toddle's Bluegrass Mandolin and Niles Hackinen's Bluegrass Up the Neck. I don't know that one. I do know the Jack Tottle book. I know that's kind of like a classic one. It was one of the first publications to include some like Jesse McReynolds style picking in it, which is an interesting, really tough concept that I don't feel super comfortable with. But whenever I do, we'll definitely check out that stuff here on the channel. I don't know if you guys know Jesse McReynolds, but amazing first generation bluegrass mandolin player who's still around, still playing on the Opry from time to time, and he was well known for doing like this weird hybrid style of cross picking where he would do multiple upstrokes to kind of create more of like a banjo roll effect. Wow, it's really hard. And there's been lots of folks who've studied his technique. I know Sam Bush will do some stuff like Jesse McReynolds style stuff from time to time. David Grisman will as well. I don't know if you guys know there's a great record from Hazel Dickens. What is that one? I'm drawing a blank here. There's the Hazel Dickens and Alice Gerard record. What is this one called? It's called The Pioneering Women of Bluegrass, and David Grisman's playing mandolin on there, and just amazing stuff from Hazel and Alice, but really cool mandolin playing, and it sounds like David Grisman had just kind of figured out how to do this Jesse McReynolds style picking, and was doing it like on all the tracks, and it's fun like kind of hearing that applied in a bluegrass setting from a great player like David Grisman. So we'll have to check that out at some point. Again, I'm not super. I don't know. I'm not the most qualified person to teach that stuff. If you're looking for someone who does that in a more modern setting, check out Jordan Ramsey, who's an incredible mandolin player out in Colorado, who is just absolutely phenomenal with that style. It's kind of made it into his own sound. Also, like Tristan Scroggins does some cool cross picking stuff, but I think he does a lot of alternate picking as well. It's not just the McReynolds style. He call it Scroggs style, like Scruggs style picking, but with his name instead of Scruggs, obviously. Shout out to Tristan, an amazing mandolin player. And let's see, what else here? Oh yeah, Tim's saying Nate's bass book is on Mill Bass, right? Yeah. Nate, bass player with the Mile 12. He's got a new book on bluegrass bass, which I think is maybe one of the only ones out there, which is kind of cool. Let's see here. There's some great books from Mike Marshall, Kevin saying. I don't know if those are on Mail Bay. You can probably get those on, I think you can get those on Elderly Instruments website. What else here? Oh, I'm so slow. I'm sorry. I'm catching up with stuff here. Mara is saying we should do a collab, Baron. That would be super fun. I was actually talking with Baron recently because he's been super helpful in finding some lenses for this new camera body I got, and convinced me to get a lens that was a pretty penny, but also I'm so excited to have it. So thanks for convincing me, Baron. And we've been talking about doing some type of collaboration soon, so we'll have to make it happen. Let's see here. Well, we'll keep the chat coming here. Let me know. Let's see. Baron Collins is saying favorite Tato tune is probably Little Burnt Potato. I don't know that one. I'll have to go check that one out. Baron's like the tune archive. You have so many cool ones in your repertoire, and definitely check out like the Mando lessons over on YouTube here, because Baron's got like some amazing tune lessons from like all different styles of fiddle tune music, and and check out his live stream as well. He's got a live stream coming up here this afternoon, so keep the mandolin content rolling today, and it'll be a great day. Let's see here. Why don't we come over to Tune Time, and why don't we pick some tunes together? So I've just got this pulled up here. Maybe we could start like reviewing this tater idea or potatoes idea. I don't even know if it's taters or potato. I think it's mostly called taters, but you'll hear some people say potatoes as well. But yeah, this is just kind of like the standard 3 keys that you'll encounter taters in, because most fiddle tunes are in the keys of G, D, and A. And we were looking at the taters for G major here. Maybe we can check out a tune in the key of G as well and put this to the test here. But the idea is just to kind of play the root note of the key that you're in. So for G major, right, you're going to be playing a G note. And I like to play 2. I think most people do as well, like where they're playing octaves or unisons of the same note. So here we're playing octaves, the G string and the G up on the 5th fret of the D string. And then we're also playing like kind of this F sharp note right beneath the high G, which is, the 7th note of the scale. It's also just like 1 fret beneath the root, and it leads into that root. There's like this pull that's pulling you into that root a little bit stronger than just hearing the root by itself. And we do this, you can kind of see on the transcription, we do this at the beginning of the first measure, and then we do it at the beginning of the second measure, and then I hear most people do 2 F sharps in the third measure here, and then 1 on the last measure. So you're kind of upping the amount of times you do the F sharp to kind of ramp things up, to lead people in, cue everyone in about, okay, we're getting close to the entrance of the tune here. So that's what it sounds like. And we have that rest at the end of that 4th measure there. There's a quarter note rest, and that's where you insert the pickup notes to whatever tune you're playing. So like if you're playing Big Sciota, I guess people play differently, but the pickup I know is where you're playing basically your open D, the 2nd fret on your D string, and then you're playing the G note on the downbeat of the following measure, which isn't pictured here on screen. So basically you're just squeezing in 2 notes there at the end of this 4th measure on that first line, and then you're starting the tune on the next measure. So that's the only tricky part, is like figuring out, okay, what's the pickup to this tune, and how do I squeeze it in there at the end of the potatoes? So here's what it would sound like with the potatoes into the tune. Something like that. And it's different for every tune, right? You have different pickups, different way of squeezing in those notes here. But let's see, we got a question here from Will. When kicking off a song at a jam, do you typically always play 4-bar potatoes? I asked because I've heard 2-bar varieties too. Is there a way to know? Yeah, great question. I talked about that a little bit in the lesson, because there is that variation where you only do 2 measures. I don't have it here on screen, but the 2-measure variation would sound like this. I don't know, like maybe the best way to picture it would be like it's the same as this first line here, but you're taking out the middle 2 measures. So you're just playing the first measure and the last measure. And that's another acceptable way to start a tune, but I don't hear it quite as often in beginner jams. It's kind of more of an intermediate to advanced level thing. Obviously, it's not a very hard thing to play, but the idea is that you're leaving less time for the rest of the jam to pick up on what the key and the tempo of the song is. Because sometimes, like, you'll hear potatoes at a jam before anyone ever says like what tune's being played or what key it's in. They'll just kick off into the potatoes, and everyone's supposed to know, okay, like I hear the G note, I know the tempo, I'm just gonna land on a G chord here and hear what the melody is, and follow from there. So if you're at a more advanced jam where people can pick up things really fast like that, you can just stick to the 2-measure variation if you want to. But honestly, I think it's probably cooler, or I say cooler. It's probably like kinder and cooler to the rest of the folks in the jam to always do the 4-measure version, because you're giving them kind of a bigger heads up about what's coming up, and you're leaving yourself more time to establish a steady tempo as well. There's probably less hitches in the plan. So the hard thing is, as a listener, if you're not playing the potatoes and you're like, uh-oh, is this person going to be playing a 2-measure version of the potatoes or a 4-measure version of the potatoes? You just have to listen to the pickup, right? That's the only distinguishing part, because, basically if you hear the potatoes and you hear those 2 notes, you basically have a split second to be like, oh, okay, we're doing the 2-measure potatoes, so I can come in with a G chord at the beginning of that next measure. Or if you hear them go, just those 2 notes, those extra G notes there, that's the cue to you as the listener and the supporter in the jam to be like, okay, I gotta wait for the end of the 4 measure potatoes here because I hear those extra roots. So kind of a long answer, but hopefully that helps, Will. Yeah, I don't know. The more you go to the jam, the more you just pick up on those cues a lot faster too. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But as a general rule of thumb, if you're just getting used to this, start with the 4 measure potatoes. If you're kicking a tune off, I think that's always a safer bet, and leads itself to making better music at the jam too. So check that out. So James is asking, how do you modify potatoes if your pickup notes start on beat 2, like sitting on top of the world? Yeah, great question. And also too, I didn't clarify this in the video. I probably should have, but usually you don't use potatoes to start a vocal tune. That's another distinguishing factor in bluegrass music. Like if I was kicking off sitting on top of the world, I wouldn't use like potatoes in the key of C. I would just start off with the melody to the tune, or that pickup measure. And everyone has to come in on the downbeat. We're just leaving those kind of 3 beats of the pickup measure to determine the tempo and to determine the key, so everyone can come in together. So that's why vocal tunes can be a little bit trickier that way. And sometimes you have to count it in verbally. If you're at a beginner jam and you want to make sure everyone comes in together, you can be like, a 1, 2, a 1. And make sure everyone has that entrance point in mind. So, but there are fiddle tunes like Blackberry Blossom might be an example. Some people play a 3-beat pickup to that melody. And you might have to change the potatoes in order to accommodate for that if you want to include the 3-note pickup. So, for instance, if I was doing that, I'd probably just play for the 4-measure version, something like that, where I was just playing 1 quarter note of these octaves, G and G, on the downbeat of that 4th measure there. So I'm leaving out, the F sharp, and I'm leaving out the last 4 G notes of that 4-measure excerpt. That way I can, exit the potatoes in time in order to play this D note on the 2nd beat of the measure, like you're saying. But, I think what I would probably do, and this may be just personal preference, I don't know if it's like the best approach or not, but what I would tend to do if there was like a 3-beat pickup to a fiddle tune that I knew, I would probably try to play it as a 1-beat pickup at the jam and play the full potatoes excerpt, just to help there be even more clarity about where we're starting. So like, what if I was playing Blackberry Blossom, I would probably, instead of playing, I would probably play a 2-8th note pickup, where I'm playing the E and the F sharp leading up to the G on the beat of the next measure there. So it would sound like this. Just a little bit more concise, or a little bit more punchy, where where the downbeat is a little bit clearer, and you get the full potatoes excerpt in there. So that's a great question, James. It's good to dig into those little variations and details. So Rob is asking, so when do you do 4-bar versus 2-bar taters? You say, I'm going to do 4 bars for 4-bar taters, or say 2. Yeah, I mean, honestly, being verbal about things is maybe the best rule of thumb. You can, there's no shame in doing anything like that, or asking questions too, like being like, okay, before someone kicks off a tune, are we doing 4-bar taters or 2-bar taters? The challenge is, like, some people might have some different terminology. Some people feel the bluegrass beat in 2/4 or instead of 4/4. So sometimes the beats and the measure numbers can be a little bit confusing, or they won't translate quite as well from person to person. So probably the best, I don't know, like the thing that'll happen eventually is that you'll pick up on those cues, like I was mentioning, answering Will's question earlier, where you're basically listening for the pickup notes for the melody, right? And if the person's playing the pickup notes on the 2nd measure, you basically have 1 beat of time to decide, okay, like, I hear the pickups, I have to play a beat, I have to play a chord on the downbeat of the next measure. And what the potatoes should do is just be an automatic kind of like focusing device, where you're like, you hear the potatoes, this familiar sound, and it's like, uh-oh, okay, we're coming in soon. I'm gonna make this G chord here. I know we're in the key of G here. I hear that G note. I'm just gonna have my left hand ready to go. I've got my pick ready to go, and then whenever I hear those pickup notes, that's kind of like this knee-jerk reaction that starts to happen where you're just like, when to place that chord. So that would be my advice. Just like listen for the pickups, be verbal about stuff too, but sometimes terms can be a bit confusing, and sometimes it's better just to listen and try to follow along with people as best you can. Okay, Betsy's saying I've heard 3 strings on taters. Nice. Okay, cool. That could be true. I haven't heard that too often. What you could hear maybe is if you check out the 3rd line of this page here, we have the D major unison taters. This is kind of like another variation of the taters, where instead of playing the octaves like we have here for G and G, here we're playing in the key of D major now. And you're playing from the C sharp on the 6th fret of the G string to the 7th fret of the G string. And you're letting that open D string ring out. But in the key of D, if you think about your D major chord, D, S sharp, and A, that open A string also resonates really well with the root chord. So you could let the open A string ring out too as you're playing this same idea. In fact, I think I was listening to that Durang's hornpipe tune that I mentioned earlier from Adam Steffi, and I think the way he kicks it off is something like that, where he's in the key of D here. He's kind of strumming 3 notes instead of just 2. So that would be another variation. But I just say watch out. Like, it doesn't work out for every key. Like, it wouldn't sound very good in the key of G to have that open A string ringing out here, because there isn't an A note in our open G chord, or in any G chord for that matter. So you have to make sure that it fits with the root chord of whatever key that you're in. And another variation of the 3-string version, Betsy, that's a good point, is maybe A major, right? Where you're playing the same idea as in the key of D here, but now we're hopping up to the D and the A strings. You can also let the open E ring out because you have an E note in your open A chord. So those open strings can be added for effect if it fits with the chord that you're playing over. Oh yeah, Baron's saying it depends on the situation too. Contra dances are always 2-bar. Yeah, good point. It depends on what setting you're in. If you're playing for a dance, if you're at a jam, a lot of specific fiddle tunes might have like some different intros too. We didn't talk about this in the video, but even like Jerusalem Ridge has a particular style of kicking off the tune, right? Where they're playing like these diamonds on an A minor. And they do it again. It's actually an 8-measure excerpt. So yeah, that's another classic intro for a tune that usually just happens for Jerusalem Ridge. I guess there's a variation of that people use for Lonesome Fiddle Blues, which is a famous tune from Vassar Clements. So some of the more original tunes, the ones that aren't as traditional and old as tunes like Durang's hornpipe or something like that, some of those have like specific intros that are calling cards to the tune, where when you hear that A minor chord intro, you're just like, okay, we're playing Jerusalem Ridge here. And that takes a while, you just have to spend a lot of time at the jam figuring out what those different variations are. Yeah, you guys should check out, like, Baron, I know, has a lot of teaching material on contra dances. I've actually not played for a contra dance, if I'm honest. I'd love to at some point, but I don't have quite as much experience there. So Baron could probably point you to some better education or some video resources that he has about that. And Lewis is asking, are there different taters for Irish or old-time jams? And could you try to sneak in the bluegrass taters? That's a good question. Again, I don't have like quite as much experience in old-time or Celtic. I have played in some bands that kind of focus on those different elements, but I wouldn't call myself an expert. But I think, in my experience, most people don't use taters in an Irish setting. If there's someone out there who knows better, they can correct me. But I don't think you'll encounter that very often. I think usually, like Irish tunes, they're a little bit more fluid, and the jam is so melodically based that, like the few Irish sessions that I've been to, usually there's like a leader, maybe a leader for the entire session, or maybe they take turns leading sets of tunes, and that leader will start a tune off. People will stop and listen for a minute and be like, oh yeah, no one says what the name of the tune is, but they'll pick it up. They're like, oh yeah, I know that one out of the 3,000 tunes I have in my repertoire or whatever. And they're able to kind of pick up and go with them. And then they'll play through the tune 2 or 3 times, and then the leader will keep playing but transition to a new tune. and everyone kind of stops and listens for a second, and you know, they'll pick it up as well. You know, even if they don't know the tune, they might pick it out by ear. Kind of crazy. Yeah, Baron saying, my experience, no taters for Irish. Either just jump in with old time or do taters. So yeah, and I think that's probably a good rule of thumb. It's just like try to listen to what's going around at the jam and see what everyone else is doing. And if there's a precedent for the taters, then go for it. If not, then you know, see what's going on. See how you can, you know, follow along and follow those cues. That's tough, you know. Like, I wish jams were a little bit more verbal about stuff, honestly, because there can be kind of like this I don't know, competitive vibe, or maybe you guys have felt that, you know, like thankfully most of the gyms I've been to don't have that feeling where, you know, it's like if you don't know what's going on, then you shouldn't be here kind of thing. I wish jams were way more open to like different skill levels, and you know, we're you know, just more communicative about what's going on without being condescending or anything like that. But that's probably a good rule of thumb. Like if you are a more advanced player, just be looking out for folks who might not be sure of what's going on, and just like communicate with them and make them feel welcome, because that's the best way to learn, best way to get better faster, honestly. It's just, I remember yeah, like as an example, I remember being at an old time jam here up in North Carolina actually, and somehow like found myself playing mandolin with like Daryl Anger and Bruce Molsky, and who was playing cello. It was like, I think it was Tristan Claridge was playing cello. It was really fun, and a bunch of other folks around them. I didn't know what to do at a bluegrass or an old time jam, so to speak. Never really done much of that before, and I think I was just chopping along with the beat. And Daryl Anger so sweetly like pulled me aside and be like, "Oh man, I really appreciate the energy that you're you know, playing with here. But in old time music, like, you don't really chop with the mandolin." And you know, I was embarrassed, but also I was like so thankful that he would take the time and the interest in me to, you know, try to help me be a better musician and play within the parameters of a style, within a tradition better. So that's so helpful. You know, not to say like you have to be the police and make sure everyone's, you know, doing something the specific way that you want them to, but just to like be communicative and warm and kind to people about it. So let's see. Mando's Corner here. What is up, my friend? That's so awesome. Oh, that's great, going through an 8-week workshop with Matt Flinner. Nice. Oh, cool. Oh, man. We'll have to coordinate times. Matt is a fantastic educator. I hope some of you guys are, the rest of you guys are taking courses from him as well. I learned everything I know from Matt Flinner, pretty much. Fantastic guy. Let's see here. Well, we've been talking a lot about taters. Let's see if we can pull this off in an actual jam setting. I'm so glad folks are interested in it. We got 92 folks on the stream, 93 folks on the stream right now, and we're talking about taters. That's crazy. I'm so impressed that there's like nearly 100 people out there interested in talking about stuff like this. So thanks for tuning in here. Subscribe for more mandolin content. How about that for a segue? But let's check this out in the key of G. I've been talking about Big Scioto. Why don't we just play that tune? If you guys don't know this one, it's a great tune in the key of G. There's a lesson for this one here on the channel too, you can check out. And there's a bunch of other fiddle tune lessons as well. But Big Scioto is in the key of G, so it's a good one to try out this taters idea. So now, I've got the transcription on screen, but you know, you've got to remember the taters from memory here and see how this works. So maybe we could try playing the melody together at the top, and then, you know, after I play through the melody, I'll take a break from playing lead and let you take a solo if you want to, and then we'll swip back and forth like a usual bluegrass jam, even though it's kind of a one-sided thing. I'm sure you guys are going to sound awesome though. So try out some solos. You know, there's a solo that I wrote for this one if you want to try that out, or try out like your own solo, try to improvise something, anything like that. So we'll kick it off with potatoes here together, and to make sure that we're all playing potatoes together, I'll count off the potatoes, which isn't usual, but you know, just so we can all feel this together. Here we go. Do the 4-measure version, and here we go about a 1, 2, a 1, 2, ready, go. Here we go. to the B. All right, your turn. On to the B section now. All right, my turn. Here we go. Your turn. All right, let's play this together. Here we go. Nice work, folks. And that is a tag lick there at the end that we'll be talking about in a lesson video coming out very soon. So shout out to Will for asking about that as well. We'll be checking out some classic fiddle tune tag licks, much like that one, and some variations that you can do. So be on the lookout for that one there. But let's see here. How you guys doing here? Boil them taters down. Love mashed potatoes. Yeah, mashed potatoes are pretty good. I used to not like them growing up, but I've seen the light. I've come around. There's actually there's this thing, Tabitha's from Northern Ireland, and there's this company called Mash, and they make like, there's like a mash truck, and there's like mashed potatoes that they ship around to all sorts of places, because you know how much folks in Ireland, Northern Ireland, love potatoes. Definitely come around myself. We just got an air fryer, and it's a dangerous thing because you can just chop up some potatoes and make some really amazing chips at the push of a button. So yeah, I love potatoes in all senses of the word here, bluegrass and otherwise. Let's see. Maybe an old French fry. I'm so glad folks have been enjoying it too. And yeah, I'm curious. Will's asking, for those of us who haven't had the chance to go to the jam, like who else out there hasn't gotten a chance to go out in person for a jam? Because that's something it's an amazing experience. I know it's been kind of a limited resource in the past couple years, but it's definitely one of my favorite things about playing music, about playing mandolin. It's just there's such an amazing jam culture out there. It's one of the best ways to get better, one of the best ways to just to improve at the mandolin, to meet people and to enjoy music more. So I really hope if you haven't gone out to the jam in person, that you'll definitely check it out, because what we do here is definitely fun and valuable, but getting to experience in person and have that interaction musically with people in the moment is pretty amazing. So definitely check it out. And it's not even something that you have to wait till you're a certain level, I don't think. Like the sooner you get out there, the faster you're going to learn, and the more comfortable you'll feel in the jam later on. It's one of those things, like it's almost like learning how to swim. It's like you have to go into the water to learn how to swim, right? You can't just wait till you're good enough to go to finally learn how to swim without actually being in the water. So it's one of those experiences where you just have to almost like give yourself immersion therapy or something like that, exposure therapy, so to speak. And it is scary, but it's totally worthwhile. So Patrick's asking here, do I read the music or the tabs? That's a good question. I read both, honestly. I started out with tablature, and then I think in high school started to force myself to read music more regularly, and it was hard, and I wasn't very good at it, and still not the best at it, honestly. Like if it's a really complicated piece of classical music or something like that I'm reading, or even like some crazy syncopated music like choro or jazz, like I have to stop and think about it for a while. It doesn't, like, I can't play it perfectly first time. But it is a valuable skill, and I think it's good to know how to read both. And I hope eventually we'll check out, like here on the channel, I want to do a series about how to read standard notation, because I feel like it's an underappreciated skill set on the mandolin, just because there aren't as many resources intended for mandolin that's written in standard notation. But there's so many resources out there that we could learn from, that were intended for other instruments like violin music, or other types of classical music that we could learn, or jazz real book charts is written in standard notation, or any other type of music method book is usually written in standard notation. And there's value to both, I think. I think like tablature is probably more valuable in some ways on the mandolin, because or with stringed instruments, because if you have frets, it's a lot easier to see where you are on the fretboard visually, like whether or not you should be using open strings, or if you're playing something up the neck and closed position, what string you're playing those notes on. All that's kind of built into the tab. But I don't like how a lot of tablature just is numbers without any rhythmic notation. That's why I try on my charts to include some type of assimilation of what the rhythm should be, whether it's quarter note, eighth note. You can see the eighth note's connected by the bar there in the tablature here on screen. By the way, you can grab this transcription over on Patreon if anyone's interested in checking this out and digging deeper. So that's one downside of tablature. So usually the rhythm's not really well notated. Sometimes if you don't have the reference for the sheet music above it, there's like no actual reference to the rhythm at all. That's what I don't really like about like some of those tab archives on online. There's just like not much detail about like how the music should be played rhythmically, which is one of the most important parts of the music. So if you don't know how to read the rhythms, or if you don't have it notated in the tablature, it can be really tough to figure out what's going on there. So pros and cons. But honestly, like these days, I try to force myself as much as possible to learn from recordings and try to learn stuff by ear, because it kind of takes the middleman out of the equation for memorization. And not to say like anything bad about notation or tablature, but I did a video about this a couple weeks ago where it's like, the more you can memorize music, the better, because it really becomes a part of who you are as a musician internally. So if you're stuck, looking at the transcription, which again, nothing against transcriptions, and I use them here just so we can all follow along together. But usually at the jam, you don't see folks with tab books or chord charts. It's all just like internalized, which frees up so much more mental space to be able to think about what's going on in the jam, how you can interact with others better, how you can take solos and improvise things differently over the chord changes. Once all that music is up here and here, it just it makes it way more easier to play something good, or to play something that adds to the music. So that would be the one caveat. It's like I don't think there's anything wrong with tab or notation, and I know how to read both, but I think learning by ear is maybe even the best thing to do. That's why I try to provide recordings over on Patreon too for anyone who's interested in just going straight to the source and trying to learn it bit by bit. And if anyone has any questions about that too, I'd be happy to go over like my learning by ear process, and maybe we can dig into that a bit deeper as well. Oh yeah, Twitchy, I'm so glad you like that analogy about swimming. I just thought of that today. I'm going to use that again. Hopefully that's helpful. There's a lot of kind of correlations between kind of other physiological types of learning. Is that the right word? I'm outside of my pay grade here, so I'm just making up words. But like the idea of playing fast is another thing that's like really similar to physical motions. Like a lot of people say, okay, I hope I'll be able to play fast one day without actually trying to play fast. It's another one of those things that you actually just have to kind of do it and be sloppy at it first and try it out in order to get more comfortable with it and to finally get better at it. So it's like trying to train for a marathon by walking fast. Like that's not really going to help. It's a different type of motion. It's a different kind of motion or a different skill set altogether. So yeah, there's a lot of things like that in music. You just have to do it, right? Same with reading music as well. Like if you want to get better at reading music, the best thing to do is just pull up some real basic, boring, standard notation excerpts and just try reading it. Like see if you can pound your head against the wall for about 10 minutes, figuring out what the first 4 notes are. And then the next time you come to it, it's going to be all that much easier. It's going to be a little bit easier. And you have these kind of like, they call it aggregate of marginal gains. Like every time you sit down to read music, it's going to get a little bit easier next time, 1% better next time. All that stuff is so helpful. Yeah, Blue Tuesday saying only difference while learning to swim, if you mess up, you don't ruin other people's day. Well, I don't know. It depends on what you're doing when you're learning to swim. If you drown when you're learning to swim, that would definitely ruin people's day. But yeah, I wouldn't even worry about that too much. Excuse me. Like going to the jam, there's different things that you can do. If anyone's interested about jam etiquette, sorry, we're in the wrong scene here. Let's come over here and let's look at each other in the eye. When you're at the jam, like there's things that you can do to be less obtrusive to other people. Like that's the big thing. Like anyone should be welcome at a bluegrass jam. But I mean, there's things that you got to keep in mind. Like if it's a bluegrass jam with Chris Thile, Brian Sutton, Stuart Duncan, Jerry Douglas, Edgar Meyer, and whoever else, like probably I wouldn't go and sit down next to Stuart and try to play along with him. Like that, what they're doing is like kind of a higher art form. It's like it's way cooler just to sit and appreciate that and learn from listening and seeing how they interact and do stuff like that. Not that I've ever seen a jam like that actually happen off stage, but yeah, like just like kind of being aware of the skill level of the jam. If it's like way above like where anyone's at, like maybe it's just good to listen and not take away from the music, so to speak. But if it's a mixed level jam, like you can tell if there's some different levels in the jam. It's totally cool to jump in there. Like there shouldn't be any barrier to starting, and just pull up a chair, even like sitting on the outside of the circle and playing quietly too. Like that's another thing as well. Like not to shun people to the outer circle, but just by sitting and trying to dip your toes into that feeling of what it's like to play with other people, to play not really loudly in a way that would detract from the music, but trying to play along with the music. That's awesome. It's like just play chords with the rest of the folks, and don't worry about taking solos. Or if you do get a chance to take a solo, like go for it. Like don't worry about it. That's another cool thing. It's like in bluegrass you have like these really sacred spots where you get to take solos. Maybe that's not the best word for it, but it kind of feels like this really special moment where you focus on another person for 32 bars and you think about what's going on and you listen to what they're doing, seeing how you can learn from them, how you can add to the music, how you can support them better, how you can follow them better. So you're not really worried about what you're playing. Obviously you want to play the right chords, you want to follow what's going on, not be too loud or too quiet, but you're focusing on them. When it comes your turn to play, it's like you get to fill that spot with whatever you can, whatever you want to. In some ways, like I'm not a purist where you have to play like one way or another. I think anything is great, and it's just the act of putting yourself out there and trying something. You're not going to ruin anyone's day by that. In fact, like I think some of the kind of the wackiest solos or folks who are just putting themselves out there, even if they don't know the tune or if they aren't able to follow along with the jam quite as well. Like some of those solos are the best in my opinion because they're like coming from a real special place inwardly. So I wouldn't worry about ruining anyone's day like that. I think that's a cool thing. It's like getting to hear other people's perspective on the music and getting to learn from folks. So don't worry about that at all. Sorry, I'm rambling here, but just a shout out to anyone who's on the edge of jumping into the deep end, wanting to see what it's like to be at that jam there. Let's see. Bluetooth is saying, I found learning the notes on the fretboard first makes reading music a lot easier. I think you're definitely right. Like if you know what the note names are on each fret, it's way easier to locate them on the page and to make it easier to kind of make that connection between reading and playing. Jim Taylor, aggregate of marginal gains. Yeah, I didn't make that up. That's from a book called Atomic Habits, which I definitely recommend. If anyone's looking to build better habits around their practice life or about really anything, not just music related. There's a lot of really applicable stuff in that book. I definitely recommend it. Let's see. Twitchy Lee saying a listen by ear lesson would be great. I'm watching a lot of Rick Beato's videos on that, but it'd be great to have an ear training lesson from someone who plays mandolin. Yeah, that's something I should do at some point. It's a tough skill to kind of like exemplify. I feel like in the moment, it's more like kind of an internal thing. But my process basically is just like kind of throw stuff against the wall until something sticks. And there's a couple tools, just to establish up front. Like there's a couple tools that will make it easier for you. I use the Amazing Slowdowner, which is this tried and true program that a lot of musicians use to slow down a recording without changing the pitch. So you can slow a recording down to like 30-40%, something like that, and listen to every single note that a player is playing. And then once you have a tool like that in place, I don't even like write stuff out when I'm learning things by ear. I don't have a piece of paper in front of me or pencil or any reference point besides the recording. And I'm just listening to like, the mandolin solo. I'm trying to figure out what the mandolin player is playing or trying to figure out the melody to this fiddle tune. And whenever I zero in on that section, I usually put like, they call it like a loop section where you have a marker in at the beginning of the section that you're learning and at the out section of the piece that you're learning. And you can just listen to it again and again and again at the beginning just to get it in your ears, get the lay of the land and the general contour of whatever you're trying to learn by ear. See if you can hum along with it. That's another really good step to take at the beginning. And then once you pick up your instrument and try to learn this by ear, the most important thing to do is just figure out what key you're in. Like that's going to start zeroing in on what options you have to choose from, right? And here's what I like to do. Like, I dropped my pick. Made a huge party foul here. I think I've got a spare one here. Yeah. So when you think about learning by ear, it's helpful just to put some terms, some parameters in place. Like there's only 12 different notes in all of Western music. Just 12. That like blew my mind when I figured that out one day. It's like, wow. How on earth do we get like the variety of musical content that's out there in the world with just 12 different pitches? So obviously like those 12 different pitches repeat in different octaves and all sorts of stuff like that, but there's just 12 different notes. So that's a big relief. It's like when you're listening to something, picking it out by ear, you have a 1 in 12 chance of getting the right note automatically, which is great. The odds are in your favor, and just even having that mindset can be really helpful when you're doing this. But the next step is to, start narrowing down your options even more. So from 12, you're figuring out what key am I in? I'm not playing with the chromatic scale, all 12 notes there. But if I figure out I'm in the key of G, I'm zeroing in from 12 notes now to the 7 specific notes that are in the key of G major. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then up to G there. To answer your question, I don't have perfect pitch, Patrick. I just use, relative pitch, I guess is the term for it. And when I'm doing it at first, when I'm trying to figure out what key I'm in, I'm mostly thinking about the chords that are being played behind whatever piece of music that I'm learning. And I'm shooting in the dark here. Like, this is where you kind of have to throw things against the wall and see what sticks. I just listen to the beginning of the section that I'm listening to, thinking about, okay, what chord is being played at the beginning of this section? Because chances are that's going to be the root chord of whatever key that you're in. So if you're hearing this chord, that sounds like, I'll just play a chord. Let's say it's like this. I'm just hearing that noise. All I have to do is like, okay, I know it sounds kind of majory. It sounds like a major chord. It sounds bright. It sounds a little bit happier. I'm just thinking, okay, like I'm going to start trying major chords until I hear one that lines up with that major chord. I can even like zero in on the loop section and just have the amazing slowdown or play this one beat again and again and again so I can hear it and reference it. And then I'm just like playing like, okay, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. Got it. You can kind of hear where that chord lines up with our original key center. So that's B flat. But let's for our sake come back to G. Let's say we're in the key of G. You figured out, okay, that first chord at the beginning of the song is a G major chord, probably in the key of G. And all of a sudden, like, you have this framework to work within. I have my G major scale. That's why I learned my G major scale, not to just be a good musician, but to see how I could play a melody in the key of G here. And now I know, okay, like that's my framework. I'm not really worried about the notes in between the cracks of that scale too much, unless, I'm starting to hear different notes outside the key, or, I've tried all 7 notes, they don't work with whatever note I'm trying to learn. And then once you have that framework, you're starting to think about, what's the first note of the melody? And you have like 7 notes to choose from. You have a 1 in 7 chance of getting the right note. And then you can be kind of like a musical detective. That's what I like to say. So like put on your sleuth hat here. Think about things even more in depth, in detail. Like, okay, if you're playing over a G chord at the beginning, you have probably a more likely chance of starting off a melody with a chord tone that fits with your G major chord. So you're kind of boiling down the 7 notes of your G major scale to really 3 notes that you have in your G major chord, right? You have G, B, and D. And chances are you're going to start off with one of those notes. Like even that tune Big Scioto, if I didn't know it, if I was learning it by ear, I would think, okay, I hear that note, that's the first note, right? Instead of just kind of walking up my scale and figuring out, okay, like none of those notes work, what note is it? I can think, okay, G, B, D. Those are the 3 notes that I have with my G major chord. That's the D, right? That's the 5th of our G major chord that's starting off with that pickup to that melody. And then I'm hearing, okay, like on the first beat, I hear another chord tone, right? It lines up with the chords that's being played. So I'm playing a G there. I'm playing the root. And there's only one note in the cracks I have to figure out. Is it an E or is it an F sharp, right? Because I can hear, okay, the pitch is going up. I'm going up to my next chord tone, but there's that connecting note in between. And I just kind of try them both out. And I think, okay, it's an E, right? That sounds right. Or even if it's an F sharp, like that's another way of playing the same melody. Doesn't really sound too much different either way. As long as you get those chord tones in place, you have a better outline of what the melody should be. And then it's just a patience game, right? Because that's a lot of food for thought on just the first 3 notes of a melody. Figuring out the key, figuring out the arpeggio or the chord tones for the first chord of the song, figuring out how those chord tones line up with the melody, and you can use this as kind of like signposts to get your way through the entire tune. But if you're just doing it bit by bit, it's a slow process, but it's a really worthwhile process. And you can see when you look at things this deeply, you have a certain depth of internalization with the tune as well. Like, if I was just looking at the chart here and figured out what those notes are from the chart, like I'm not even thinking about how those notes line up with the scale or the chord or a certain part of the melody or the framework. Whereas if I learn it by ear, I'm forced to kind of think about things deeply, and I have a much deeper relationship with it afterwards. So yeah, Francois saying learn arpeggios. That's a big takeaway here. Yeah, learn your scales, learn your arpeggios. They're not just useless pieces of information. They're so useful for learning stuff by ear. It's like you're learning the rules of operation for how music actually works here. So let's see here. Will saying, I heard a great theory explanation recently where Victor Wooten, incredible bassist he is indeed, shared that, and many were wrong about the total number of keys. Oh, really? That's so interesting. Yeah, Victor's an incredible musician, incredible educator. There's a cool book as well that he wrote called The Music Lesson. And another cool tidbit from him is that I remember reading this in his book. I've got it on my shelf somewhere back here. But he said he realized one day that if you're playing the wrong note, so to speak, if you're playing a note outside the key center, one of those 6 or 5 notes outside of the 7 notes in the key, you're only 1 fret away from playing the right note, the note that is in the key. So in other words, like, if you're playing your G major scale and then you accidentally play like the 6th fret on your G string, which technically would be like a wrong note, so to speak, for whatever key that we're in here, G major. But if you play the 6th fret, you're just 1 fret away if you move up 1 fret to playing a D note, which is in the key. Or you're 1 fret above your C note, which is another note in the key. So that's another cool, helpful tidbit. It's like if you reframe things in your mind, be like, okay, if I play a note outside the key, or I play a technically wrong note, if I move that note up 1 fret or back 1 fret, chances are I'm going to land on something that's going to sound pretty good. So that's another really helpful thing. It's like there's so many kind of cheats like this. They're kind of mind hacks, so to speak. I don't know if that's the right word, to really get through this and start playing things that sound good, and to take away the anxiety and the fear of playing with other people or putting yourself into musical situations like this. Jim Taylor saying ending note is a clue as well. Yeah, like digging into like how the melody starts and how it ends. Those are going to be really key into figuring out what key you're in. Like, I guess that's the meaning behind that phrase, the key center. And let's see, Peter Griffin saying nerdy stuff. If you think of 12 notes in mathematical terms, the factorial value 12 equals 479 million note combinations. Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. No wonder we have the variety of music that we have today. Total keys, 30. 7 sharp, 7 flats plus C equals 15 times 2 major and minor. Yeah, actually, I don't know if there are 30 keys. Is there? Let me think about this. So there's 12 major keys, and then there's 12 minor keys to go along with it, but they actually share the same key signature. That's the confusing thing too. It's like if you were to factor in all the different variables, like I guess there's 7 different notes in your scale, and there's 7 different modes that go along with the scale as well, including the minor key that often people refer to. So it'd be like 7 times 12 would kind of offer some different perspective on things too. It's like what even would that be? 84 possible modes of the major key. But then if you factor in like there's other kind of weird scale combinations like the melodic minor, the harmonic minor. There's also like polytonal music, or semitone music, I guess you should call it. All that kind of factors in different possibilities as well. But I'd say for bluegrass, we're usually thinking in major keys, almost always in major keys. And then there's maybe a few exceptions, like, sometimes you'll have tunes in the Mixolydian mode or the Dorian mode, which is kind of a common minor key sound in bluegrass. So that's only like, 12, be 36 possibilities. But they're all related too, because they're all just modes of the major keys. So like once you know C major, you already know the G Mixolydian mode, or you already know the D Dorian mode. And I know we're getting into some confusing territory here, but yeah, that's some food for thought here, and definitely really useful for ear training and learning stuff by ear here. Life with Carter's asking, are you still in the Foreign Landers band? Yeah, actually that's a great segue, because we're actually playing a gig tonight. We're playing up in Yadkinville, North Carolina, opening for the Malpass Brothers, which I'm excited. I haven't actually gotten to hear them live, so it'll be cool to see them play. So we're playing there tonight, and we've got some other gigs coming up. You can find out more info on our social media, the Foreign Landers, or on our website, theforeignlanders.com. And I've actually, I think, got to wrap things up here because we got about a 3-hour drive up to this gig here for sound check. But there's a lot to think about here. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Will Cooper says brain overload. I know, right? But just stick to the 12 major keys. I think that'll be a good place to start. Learn your 12 major scales. We're going to talk about scales at some point here on this channel. Don't you worry. And I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to pick some more tunes and try more potatoes out, but it was just so fun getting to hang and talk with you guys. So be sure to tune in next week. We'll be back here at 11 a.m. Eastern, next Saturday for another live stream. More videos coming out here on the channel, so be sure to subscribe. Check out, all those transcriptions, backing tracks over on Patreon. Shout out to all you patrons too. I really appreciate the support over there, and lots more stuff coming soon. But in the meantime, you guys should just keep the mandolin hang going. Head over to Mando Lessons channel for their live stream this afternoon, and we'll see you guys soon.